Hey there, I'm Robert John Hatfield, and this is
Steve.
And we are with Audiomover in St. George, Utah. We're the company that takes your old audio and videotapes and converts them into digital. And today we're going to show you another project that we received that's one of the larger projects. One of the things that we're known for, although we do projects every day that just have one tape or two tapes, we do that a lot. We also specialize in these bulk orders, and that's what we're actually really known for this. And so this is another project came in. I'm not completely sure how many tapes the total was, but it came in from, it's Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. And this was one of those situations where there was some sort of a government entity that had all of these tapes that were recordings of meetings or something like that. And what they do is people contact us, and then we will walk them through ways of getting them digitized that can fit inside their budget, some options they may not have thought of, and so we put together a formal quote to go through the different options for getting this done successfully based on your needs, and then people ship them in here. And then we take care of it. These were sent in using FedEx. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of stuff from FedEx. And there's, all the different shipping companies obviously bring things here. FedEx is, they don't have some of the option that a lot of people use that neither FedEx nor UPS have is something called media mail. And it's something that the post office offers where you can take, basically, if it's cassette tapes or books or videotapes or something like that, it applies for this thing called media mail. And it basically is, it just costs a lot less, but it takes a lot longer to get here. And so, but some people want to use, a shipping company, or they have accounts with them or whatever. And, there's people that prefer using FedEx and UPS simply because they feel more comfortable with it. I do know, having talked to the post office, the USPS, a lot over the years, that they tell me that if you use the media mail service, the machines that they run through are a little rougher on the packages. So if you use the media mail service, which we use it all the time, and people send in things all the time using media mail, just make sure that you package it up really, really well. Put plenty of tape around it. Make sure you have boxes that can handle the weight of the tapes, because they do get a little bit heavy. If you filled one of these things filled with tapes, it can weigh a bit. But it's a great way to save some money and then get the tapes to us that way. Now these, it looks like they may have had them these may have been the boxes they were stored in originally. A lot of times people just have these boxes sitting in a back room, and they'll just throw tape around the box as it is and ship them to us. I don't know, now this is a slightly larger than, so you have the standard banker's boxes that are, these are extra long, you can see here. So usually the ones I'm thinking about are shorter. Those hold about, when they're filled up and they have jewel cases, they'll hold about 180 tapes. One of those smaller banker's boxes. I guess this one would be probably somewhere in the 250, 260 range. I've never measured how much they'll fit in here.
I've never seen one like that, to be honest.
This size?
Yeah.
I've seen them for holding documents before. I hadn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that people have shipped tapes in here this way before. Looks like they might even have boxes inside the boxes. But these have those openings on the side where you hold them. And I've seen people ship them in these a lot, and they seem to make it just fine. And they taped it. They obviously put a bunch of tape around to keep it safe, and they made it fine. A lot of people get worried about this because we do a lot of work not only for government agencies but for churches, and the recordings that they have are irreplaceable. So there's always this nervousness about shipping them, and can they make it here and whatever. And the thing that all these the shipping companies, we've talked to them all about this. How do we make sure, how do we work with the client and tell them, to be certain that their stuff's going to make it? Of course, there's nothing that's ever 100% certain, but what they've told us is that if you just tell people to put their contact information on the items inside the package, then, if there's some sort of a catastrophic thing that happened, which doesn't really ever happen, then they will always get things back to you as long as they can identify who it belongs to. And so a lot of organizations, we go ahead and we explain this all to them, and it's actually laid out in our documentation and the quotes that we send out. All this stuff's in there. And it basically, so a lot of people will do that then, and that's how they get these things shipped to us and keep their contact information on the inside, and then these boxes arrive, and then what we do, and I'll let Steve kind of explain what the process is once these arrive. So we have these boxes that have arrived here. There's these, in this case, there's 6 boxes filled with cassette tapes, and then when these boxes come in, we have a process that we go through to get them going, to start digitizing them. And so Steve, what are the things that we start going through as we get the tapes in?
Well, the first thing we want to do is get these things open, and we want to make sure that the count is correct. And sometimes when they're sent to us, you might not even know the count, and that's okay. We'll figure it out for you. When it gets here, we count every tape, every empty case, whatever it might be that's in these boxes will be accounted for. And then from there, we put on labels. So each individual item that comes in, whether it be cassette tapes or videos, whatever you send us is going to get a label that is tied to your account, essentially. So either it's a last name or an entity name, or sometimes it's just a serial number, whatever it is. We have ways that we can use it for us, or whatever you would like to have it be named, we can do that as well. And then they are numbered from 1 to however many we have. And that's just to make sure that each tape is accounted for, each tape gets back to you, especially because most people do prefer to keep their original tapes. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that that inventory is assessed. And it helps us also when it comes to the processing phases to make sure that we have a file that associates with each tape.
Yeah, when we get to the QC part of it, having that right there, we have here's a file on the computer, and then it matches up with this particular tape. Yeah. And to this point, these codes that we put on can be something that we come up with you. If you don't have something, we actually have an internal code we use that Steve was talking about. But a lot of times, we've worked with organizations that these are all going into a database, and so every tape needs to have a code based on the information that's on the tape, and so it'll be 2 characters for the year, 2 characters for the month, and then it just we kind of build those codes based on those things. Then you're able to use them on your end for that. But it's one of the other reasons that we put labels on them to distinguish them. I'll give you a really practical example. A lot of times we get these tapes from a county government, for example, and they have a bunch of hearings. Well, they'll have a hearing on, we'll say, February 3rd in 1992, and they'll have 8 tapes associated with it. And then what would happen when they were originally recorded is the person would write down on the tape what the hearing was that they were going through, and may have forgotten to put tape 1, tape 2, tape 3. And so then what happens is, on our end, basically every single tape from your collection says the exact same thing.
That's a lot.
Because they didn't note that there was a difference, that this was tape 1, tape 2, tape 3. So it helps us, then we put a distinguishable code on there, so when you get it back, you still don't know which one was 1 or 2 or 3, because it wasn't written down on them originally, but you'll be able to identify, okay, this tape right here goes with this code. And then you can know for sure that each tape is accounted for because the code and the tapes match up with each other. That's one of multiple examples of why we have that process of getting these things labeled.
And it helps with the organization when it gets back to you. Like Robert has said, we do name the files based on whatever you're looking for them to be named. But when you're just getting a file and you're not really sure which tape it goes through, that little code on there is going to tell you exactly which tape went with which file.
Yeah, and which is, there's so many practical reasons for this. We actually have received libraries of tapes from individuals who may have recorded speeches that they've given for decades and decades. And in many cases, you can't even distinguish what was written on there. It just kind of looks like some scribbling.
Yeah.
And so, or labels had fallen off years ago and there's nothing left on it or whatever. So we just make sure that there's a way for you on the back end, even if there's no distinguishable marks, we put one on there so that you can connect things, you know what goes with what, make sure that everything's accounted for. Now, one thing we didn't talk about in one of our last videos where we did these large projects is it's an interesting type of cassette tape that most people don't realize exists. And so you have a cassette tape and you think, Tanner, can you grab a cassette tape? Is there one sitting close by? Just so I can hold it up and talk about it. You have cassette tapes, and just anyone from that's just sitting over there would be useful. Should have prepared for this because I knew we were going to talk about this.
Good point. There you go.
You see a cassette tape.
As long as you know where it goes back to.
And all cassette tapes. Okay, here we go. So this is a cassette tape that we're running through right now in a project. And it just looks like a normal cassette tape. And in this case, it is just normal cassette tape.
No.
But this cassette tape, it can be multiple things, and people don't realize this. We have a video on our YouTube channel that talks about how a cassette tape is actually what's called a 4-track tape. Now, I have a whole video that talks about this on our YouTube channel, and you might find this interesting. It actually talks about It's actually a video about 8-track tapes, and I happen to talk about these tapes in the video. And when I say this is a 4-track tape, what do you mean this is a 4-track tape? Well, if you ever used cassette tapes before, you'd know that side A had stereo, which was 2 tracks, left and right, and side B was stereo, 2 tracks, left and right. And you'd play it, and you'd hear the side A tracks, left and right. You'd flip it over, and you'd hear the side B tracks, left and right. The way that worked is this tape right here, this is the leader tape, I guess it doesn't matter, but the brown tape that you see right there actually has 4 tracks. You have a left and right track on side A, left and right track on side B, and once again, you watch that video that I put together about, and it's called Why is an 8-track tape called an 8-track tape? And it'll explain this concept of your side A has the left and right, side B has the left and right, which is actually 4 separate signals. Okay? Now, why is that important? Well, on a tape like this that comes from most churches, it's not really important at all. Because what they would do in a church is you'd have the sound guy in the back at the beginning of a sermon would put the tape in, hit record, and then when it was 45 minutes or 30 minutes into the sermon, you just flip it over and hit record again and record the rest of the sermon. You just have that little break, you know, where you had to flip the tape over. Well, there was something that came out long time ago, I think it was sometime in the 80s, that a lot of government agencies used. And your government agency might have used this and you don't even realize that they did, and it won't play. Even though it looks like a regular cassette tape, and it is a regular cassette tape, the format it was recorded in won't play correctly on a regular cassette deck. So I'm going to show you what that is. It's one of these machines. It's called Lanier. Now, what made this machine special? And the reason I bring this up is because, once again, government agencies specifically, and courts more than any, used these machines. What was the difference between these machines? Because if you look at it, it actually, these things, where's the eject button on this?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's locked or not.
Oh, and that's the other thing that has, there it is. Oh, I have to turn it on to eject it.
Yeah.
So you'll see the windows here, but these are where just normal cassette tapes sit in, right here. Now, the way these would work is, on the back here, you'll see 4 inputs. And channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. These correspond to left, right, side A, left, right, side B. But instead of having side A and side B, they record all 4 tracks at the same time in the same direction, which means you can't play one of these tapes on a regular cassette deck. What'll happen is when you play it, you'll hear, well, that sounds fine, and you'll hear track 1 and track 2 playing forward, and then when you get to the end of the tape, if you flip it over, you'll hear track 3 and track 4 playing backward. So you can figure out if you have linear tapes by simply putting your tape in, playing it for 5 or 6 seconds until you hear some sound, and then immediately flipping it over once you hear sound and hitting play again. And if you hear it backwards, then you have a linear tape. The reason I bring this up is I can't tell you how often we've worked with government agencies who think they have a bunch of regular cassette tapes because they don't know any different, because they wouldn't even know that this was a different format. And then when they arrive here in the studio, we have to call them up and say, actually, these are not normal cassette tapes. These are linear tapes, which is a completely different format, and for us, a totally different process for digitizing them. Now, the good news is we are one of the only, maybe the only company in the country that knows what these are and how to get them digitized. There's not a lot of people that understand how this stuff works, so we can handle it, but it's a totally different process and a different pricing structure for us because it is so different. These machines, so what was the point though? And I'll just try to explain this really quickly. The reason they would do this, the way that this company was able to sell this to courts specifically, is that each one of these inputs would then correspond to a microphone. So you'd have a microphone at the judge, you'd have a microphone at the witness stand, you'd have a microphone where the attorneys stand, and maybe another one on the tables, wherever, but they'd have 4 different microphones, 4 different inputs, and then what they would do is the judge would go in here, the out front mic would go there, the witness would go here, and the way they would sell this to the government agencies and the courts was to be able to say, when you have to go back and transcribe this stuff, you can isolate the microphone, and you won't hear all the other stuff going on. You can isolate the judge's mic and hear everything he says without hearing the other people. Mm-hmm. That was how they sold these things. So, and then what they would do is you'd put the tape in here, you'd hit record, and then you'd have another tape in here that's set to record, and when this tape had about a minute left until it was done, this one would kick on. And then while this one's going, you'd put another tape in here so you'd never miss anything. So, but here's the other kicker. And I don't know where it is. You'll see this button here that has speed. So this one would be fine-tuning speed, which is not that unusual in a tape, but they also had this different speed back here. And you'll see that this is 15/16 IPS and then 15/32 IPS, inches per second. Now, why is this important? Well, what they did is they created these things so that they would record so slow that you could get multiple hours on a regular cassette tape. You never flip the tapes over because remember all 4 tracks are on the one, just playing forward. So, but they would play at the wrong speed. So this is not in most of the time when we get these things, they were not recorded at standard cassette tape speed anyway. Some of them are. But oftentimes these were recorded at this ultra slow speed. So then once again, these are way more challenging and different to get them digitized. And I just wanted to bring this up because a lot of people we talk to, one of the first things I'll ask them when a government agency calls us, I will say, do you know if they're linear tapes? And most of the time they don't even know what I'm talking about. One of the ways also that you can tell if you don't have a tape player is a lot of this company that made these machines also, and that's their logo there, you probably can't see it, also made tapes. And although they weren't special tapes, they were just tapes, they had their brand on it. So a lot of people not knowing any different would once they bought these machines, would order their tapes from this company. And so if you have tapes that actually say the word lanier, L-A-N-I-E-R, on them, there's a really good chance that they were recorded on a machine like this. And we kind of need to know that because like I said, the pricing structure and the process is totally different for us to do those tapes. But if you have no way of figuring them out, just send some to us and we'll check for you. We've actually done that with many people where they just have no idea. A lot of times what happens is you get some young person that's working there, that's one of their first jobs or something like that, and they've been given this assignment to go get these tapes digitized, and they barely know what a tape is, let alone that this strange equipment that they were recorded on. And so what we've done in many cases, we'll just say, look, just send us a sample, just grab about 10 tapes from a few different years and send them in, and we can figure it out for you. Because what we've also seen is in some cases, it's a mix. And what'll happen is that all the tapes recorded from 1976 to 1988 were recorded on standard cassette decks, and then the Lanier salesman apparently showed up at the courthouse, and then everyone from that point on was recorded on one of these 4-track machines. So anyway, that was an important thing I wanted to go through. And these are kind of interesting machines. They had these security keys on there, so people couldn't mess with the machines. The tapes you can't take them out. I mean, you have to have a key to even use it, and so you can't arm them. You can't record, do anything if it's missing a key. So anyway, we can take care of these. These are very, very common in government agencies, and so I wanted to just spend a minute talking about that because we do have that conversation a lot with people, and we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of these tapes. It's not unusual, and so we can certainly take care of that for you. So anyway, let's see here. So these tapes, dealing with these big libraries, I think we talked about this in the last video. What are the most common things as we open up these tapes? What are the things that we're looking for? What are the biggest issues that you have to deal with? You're on the front line with these things every day. What are the most common things you have to deal with these tapes?
So when they're coming out of these boxes, there's two things that we really look for. One is the state of the labels. So most tapes have some sort of label that was stuck to it, and as we all know, adhesive just kind of wears over time. So depending on the age of the tape and the quality of the adhesive, a lot of times the labels will just fall right off. That's common when we have tape and we tape them back on. But the other thing we look for is actually the pressure pad, which if you don't know where that is, so here, hang on, grab a tape. So if you're looking at a cassette tape, and if you flip it like this, and you can see underneath and see the tape, right in the middle is a little pad that's on a piece of metal that almost acts like a spring. So when the tape is read by the player head, it actually pushes up against that, and that pressure pad pushes back, allowing you to actually get your information. Now if that pressure pad's not there, you get some pretty terrible audio. So we have to make sure that those are there to make sure that you get the best quality audio that we can get for you. But also, sometimes you just won't get anything, and sometimes it can actually damage the tape. So we do want to make sure that those are there, and we have a system in place where we take care of those. Luckily, there are people out there who decide not to take their tapes back. They just want to get rid of them, and so we salvage those tapes for parts. And one of the biggest things that we salvage is these pressure pads, because once again, they're held on just by a simple adhesive, and those decay over time.
Yeah, there's been a lot of organizations over the years that just tell us up front we don't want our tapes back, and so we actually then will salvage pieces out of those tapes, and that's one of the main things. And we have tons of these things, these little pressure pads here, to replace them in your project, simply because people previously had let us keep their tapes, and then we will just take the parts and pieces to help your, because there's probably going to be problems in this box, and we'll be able to replace parts on their tapes and get them working because somebody in the past had left their tapes with us. Now, we're not asking you to leave your tapes with us. If you don't want to, it doesn't really make a difference to us ultimately. We're just telling you, if you don't want your tapes back and you decide to leave them with us, they will go to a better place. They will live on in other people's libraries. We'll just, like I said, there's lots of little pieces and parts that can break, and it's nice for us to be able to pull them out of an old tape and put them in these tapes so that they'll be able to work. So then what we do, so we get these tapes out, like Steve said, we get them counted. We will, we'll check for those things and we'll get them labeled. And then we start the process of digitizing them. And then there's a bunch of things that go through. And we have another video online that we made a couple years ago that walks through that process as well, what we do. And so anyway, what we're going to do now is, I don't think there's anything else we wanted to talk about related to these tapes or this particular project. So we're not 100% sure how many tapes were in here. I remember I was interacting with the person that sent them to us. We sent them a proposal, and then they look at the different options that we provide to them, and then pick an option and send them in, and then we just do the work. Now, if you have a library like this of tapes, and you have 1,000 tapes or 2,000 or 10,000, whatever it is, we're never really surprised how many, because we've seen, like I said, a lot of tapes come through here. Just give us a call, and we're happy to put together a formal proposal, and then it'll give you some options that you may not have considered, that'll help you get your project done based on what you're trying to accomplish. Like I said, there's things that you probably haven't thought about besides this. When you're digitizing these that can be helpful, that can be money-saving, time-saving kind of things. So anyway, so with that, what we're going to do is I'm going to have Tanner open these boxes up, and let's get these things out and take a look at. Tanner's our resident awesome guy. Anyway, Tanner, why don't you just come up here for a minute? I know you're in the last video. We're just putting you on the spot each time.
Oh, yeah.
Might have to scooch down a little.
Tanner's not the only guy that does this stuff here for us, but he's been with us. Tanner's been here for a couple years. And we've been in business for 20 years. Yeah, it's a fun place to work, more or less.
I mean, I've been here for 2 years, and I love it, man. I think what's best about this is that you get to see so much history. I mean, granted, it's different kinds of history, and sometimes boring history, but there's so much that we get to see and hear and be a part of, and we like preserving this stuff, and we have fun doing it. And it seems like it would be tedious for some people. It might, but we love it.
It is pretty interesting, and we actually work with some pretty interesting people too. I mean, we've done some things for some historical organizations that are super fascinating. I remember one project we did over a decade ago, and it is really interesting, where I would go, periodically I just go through the machines and put headphones in, make sure everything's still playing and sounds okay, and just doing QC while they're recording. And I remember one time we were doing some recordings for a court, and I put the headphones in, and right as I put them in, the words I heard were, "So the decapitation happened post-mortem?" I thought, whoa, this is awesome.
Do you mind?
Anyway, just but it was some court case. And anyway, just happened to hear that while I was putting the headphones in, and so there's some pretty fascinating stuff. We obviously don't listen to all this stuff. There's no way in the world we'd ever have time to listen to the stuff that comes in. Interestingly, most of our work's done visually.
Yeah.
We actually see it. We listened to little bits of it just to make sure that there wasn't anything weird that happened in the digitizing, but most of it is visual, and we can tell how it turned out by looking at it more so than listening to it. And so it's super fascinating. The technology is interesting. The old stuff is interesting. The old combined with the new is fun stuff. And so it is a fun business to have and to work on. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we'll have Tanner open these up. We don't know what it's going to look like in here, but see how they were packaged, and then we'll get them out here on the floor, and you can kind of see how we organize them from there. And then we'll get them ready to start digitizing, and we'll get this project done pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get at it.
Sweet.
Okay, so Tanner took all these tapes out, put them on the ground here so we could look at them, and the final count, Steve, was 1,002 tapes. So we're looking at 1,002 tapes out here on the ground, and they had something else in the package, which was some microcassette tapes. And he wrote down that there are 24 microcassettes. So microcassettes are these little tiny things, and they're different than cassette tapes. They have a totally different player. These were really made for dictation and voice recording. So we actually do a lot of these. I think we did one for some organization last year. We don't get as many of these, not even close, but I think we had one from one organization. Was it 400 or 500 of these, didn't we?
It's quite a few.
Yeah, it was a lot, about a year ago that we did. But we do a lot of these microcassettes too. And one of the nice things about our company, Audiomover, is we have set ourselves up so that kind of whatever you have, we actually get a lot of calls where people have these, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 tapes, and then they'll say, hey, and I also have these other little, whatever it happens to be. And pretty much if it's some sort of a analog media, a tape of some sort, we can take care of it, whether it's audio or video. And not even just analog, because DAT tapes is something else that's actually a digital recording, but it is a tape.
Yeah.
There's another one that's not a tape, but it was a popular recording media, which was mini CD.
Oh yeah, mini CD.
And we also do, I think you did one of those just a couple days ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
Mini CD we had in the studio. They're not very common. It never really took off. But the point is, so many different organizations will call us about the cassette tapes, or they'll call us about videotapes or something, and they'll say, oh, and we have these other things. Can you take care of that too? Chances are, whatever you have, we can take care of it. Whether it's an audio tape or a videotape, we have players for them. Yep. So if you have 1,000 VHS tapes and you have a couple of these other oddball things, just give us a call. We'll throw that into the proposal as well. So there's a couple other things. I'm going to put this back down. So there's a couple other things that just to point out about this particular project. Inside these boxes, and the person that packed these up actually put this on the inside of each one of these boxes. You can't see it on camera.
Yeah, I can see it right there.
But I'll hold it up here so you can see. On the inside of this box, there's this paper right here, and what this is a well, I don't need to pull it out because I'm holding it here too. This was in another one of the boxes, and what this is actually the proposal that we had sent out, and there were several different options in the proposal. And so what this person did is they printed out our cover letter from the proposal, and then they printed out the option in the proposal that they wanted us to do, and then just included that in the package. And so this particular one was option one of the different things that we, and what's good about this, here I can put this down so you have to hold it. So what's good about this is we can do things with your tapes that you probably haven't thought of before. We have different options. Just over the years, we've been doing this for 2 decades now, and there's probably some things that you haven't thought of. And what you might want to do is give us a buzz, write us an email, and explain what your goal is with your tapes. Because some organizations, all they want to do is just get a straight archive. They don't care about any. They just want to get the recording off of it, and that's it. There's other organizations that want us to really clean up the audio. There are some government agencies that we work with that will send us thousands of tapes, and they want them set up a specific way because they're planning on putting them online for the public to access. Mm-hmm. And so we will go through and actually do these specific things to them. But once again, these are all things that we can outline in these proposals. And so we can figure out and give you some options, and you can then decide what works best for you, or just give us a call and we can help you come up with a solution that works with what you're trying to accomplish and with your budget. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there was one other thing, and I think you were noting this about the boxes inside the boxes. Maybe you want to grab one of those and just kind of show everybody what these people did.
So inside the bigger box, we have smaller boxes. That happens a lot because a lot of times, like I've got here, Well, it doesn't specify what city. It just says city meetings, and they've got things labeled here of a certain area, and that also allows us to keep things pretty well straight when they're labeled like this and in smaller boxes. And I don't know if you can see all of them, but they've all been laid out by their smaller individual boxes, as well as the entire box they may have gone in. So
yeah, so what this particular organization did, these boxes, I imagine, were probably the boxes the tapes had been sitting in for years. And these boxes right here had probably been sitting on a shelf. If you're watching this video and you're part of a government agency, you probably have, this is the kind of thing you probably have. Actually, we see these kinds of boxes a lot, especially from government agencies. And this is what the boxes are stored in. And then what they do is they get these larger bankers boxes. So rather than just shipping them in there, they just get these larger bankers boxes and then just set it inside like that. Then they can get a couple of these things in there, tape it shut, and then that's how they get the boxes in this. And then what we do, because then you'll notice on those boxes, the one you're just holding up, each one of the boxes has a date or some sort of a number, a sequence on it, and then we keep track of what tape went where. And as we label them and move them through, so we can get them back in the correct box after they're digitized and keep everything really organized so you know what you're dealing with, and when you get it back, it all makes sense. Anyway, so there's nothing super unusual about this project. This is very typical of the kind of thing we get here. And the tapes, I actually opened up a few of them. The things that we're usually concerned about, Steve, you talked about this in the previous part of this video, is the labels coming off. I'm just going to grab a random one right here. You'll see this one, everything is pretty secure on this label. Good. There's nothing, but you'll also notice something about this tape. There's no writing on the tape itself. So a lot of organizations, and this gets to be kind of an issue, because then it's dependent on what's written on the outside of the case. So we have to keep track of what went with what, and we actually have processes when we digitize, because you obviously have to pull them out of the case to digitize it. We have processes to make sure that it comes out and gets back into the same case, and you know what everything's associated with. And so in this case, the information on this particular tape is written on the outside in the jewel case, but not written on the tape itself. And then, as you talked about last time, what we will do is on side A of the tape, we will put our own little label, which also then tracks this particular tape through the entire system. And then we'll be able to tie everything together on the back end and make sure that you have everything that you sent in. This is actually interesting too, because they have a brand of tape that we don't see a lot, and it's Quantigy.
Oh yeah.
Quantigy was really, really top shelf audio. I mean, when you went into a recording studio and you would work with 2-inch audio tape, for example, a lot of times it was Quantigy tape. So this was really top shelf stuff. So this particular government agency was using really, really nice cassette tapes. So anyway, but only having the label on the outside adds that extra little thing that we have to keep track of to make sure that you know on the back end what went with what. Then that happens quite a bit. They have a couple different brands. They have Maxells over there.
Yeah, I've seen
and yeah, a lot of Maxells, but I just noted the Quantigy because we don't see that brand very often.
I've honestly never seen that brand.
Is that right?
In the 2 years I've been here, I've never seen it.
Yeah, Quantigy was a really top-end one, and another one that was a really, really well-known that was also found in recording studios was BASF.
Oh yeah,
we see those way more than we see these.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about BASF tapes, which is unusual, is that those tapes had the screws on side B.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of side A. And they're also, I think, usually flathead screws. The only reason we know this is because we have to repair a lot of tapes, and you have to undo the screws, so you start noticing oddball things like that. You have a tape. Yeah, BASF was the weirdo tape manufacturer back then. I'm not sure if any, offhand, I can't think of who else did that, but they were another one of the where you would find their stuff in recording studios and elsewhere, because they were kind of top-notch, top-shelf kind of stuff. And so, but Maxell was also a really, really well-known brand back in the day as well. So these things were super well organized. They were put together in these boxes very well. Once again, they were probably in these boxes for years, if I had to guess. I've actually visited facilities to talk to them about their tapes and found and gone into their rooms where they have them and seen tape boxes just like this all over the shelves, and then gone through the client with them so we can see what they have. And so this is very, very common. Now, we want to make sure you understand something too. If you don't have your tapes this well organized, don't worry. When it gets here, we've literally had boxes sent to us before where it looks like things were kind of like pushed, off the shelf into the box, and it's okay. Sometimes for some people it's an impossible thing trying to get them organized and trying to get them together. You don't even need to know for sure how many tapes you have. If you can just get in a ballpark, when we put these proposals together, we have price breaks. And so if you look on our website, you'll see that the price, if you send in one tape, it's a certain amount. I don't want to say what it is right now, because if this video is watched 5 years from now, it may be a different price. But we have a price for one tape. I think it's 1 to 5 right now, and then 6 to 10, and the more you go, the lower the price gets. And so if you send in 100 tapes, the price per tape is much lower than if you send in one tape. Now in this case, they send in 1,000 tapes, and what we do then is we outline those quantity prices in the proposal. And each one of these options that you may not have thought about before has its own price break based on the work that we have to do here in the studio. Because some of the options that we give you require more effort and some less. And so we've adjusted all these things so that you can find something that fits your needs and your budget. So we've got this organized. Like I said, we've been doing this for 20 years. So we've kind of fine-tuned all these things, and which will benefit you by contacting us and going through this process. And so anyway, if you go on the website, you can see what our price breaks are, but ask us for a proposal. So anyway, like I said, this is kind of a normal project, typical kind of thing that we get in here, about 1,000 tapes. A lot of organizations are in that 1,000 to 2,000 range, and we do this kind of thing all the time. We've been doing this for a couple of decades, and so we've kind of perfected this process, and we'd love to help you out. So go to audiomover.com. It's Audiomover, not movers. Audiomover, singular.com. And we've got you can call us, you can email us, you can text us. There's a messaging thing. We've got a nationwide number, so you can give us a buzz and use it. Give us a call and let's talk about your needs, your project, what you're trying to accomplish, and we can help you find the right solution for what you're trying to do. Anyway, look forward to talking to you.